Step away from the vehicle. Right now.
I'm just putting my bags in my trunk.
What are you really doing here?
I was shopping. There's the store logo on the bags.
ID. Now.
Am I being detained, officer?
Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
Oh my god, he's just
Open the
shopping.
bags.
I don't consent to a
You
search.
think you know the law? I know my rights.
The parking lot lights flickered on just as evening settled over the mall, and in that ordinary glow a single moment began that would tear a quiet family apart, expose a dangerous truth, and turn one simple act of love into a public nightmare no one could ignore. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from today. Drop your city and country in the comments. And if stories about justice, family, and truth matter to you, please subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. On April 17, the air outside the Westbrook Mall felt calm and harmless. Cars rolled in and out. Shoppers laughed, checked their phones, and searched for keys. Among them was a black father named Caleb Rhodes, moving with purpose but not rush. He was 43, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed simply in blue jeans, a faded college hoodie, and clean sneakers. He didn't look rich. He didn't look poor. He looked like a dad trying to finish an errand before dinner. Caleb had not planned to be there that evening. His life normally ran on schedules, security briefings, and controlled movements. For years, he worked a job that demanded silence and precision, one where mistakes could cost lives. But that night, his job did not matter. His rank did not matter. His training did not matter. All that mattered was his daughter. Her name was Ariana Rhodes, 17 years old, finishing her final year of high school. Prom was 5 days away. It should have been exciting. Instead, it felt heavy. Ariana's mother, Alina, had passed away months earlier after a long illness that drained joy from their home inch by inch. Alina loved big moments. She planned birthdays early. She cried at school events. She had dreamed about prom nights since Ariana was little. After Elena died, Ariana said she didn't want to go to prom. The dress shopping had been their thing. Caleb didn't push at first. Grief had rules. But one quiet night, while sorting through paperwork, Caleb found a folder Alina had kept. Inside were printed pictures of dresses, store names circled in pen, and handwritten notes that said things like, "Green would glow on her," and "Don't forget comfortable shoes." That folder changed everything. Caleb took a rare evening off. He drove his personal car, not the government vehicle he used for work. He parked far from the entrance, out of habit. Inside the department store, a sales associate helped him quietly. No drama. No confusion. Just careful choices. A long emerald dress. Silver heels. A simple bracelet. Caleb paid, declined gift wrapping, and left with 3 shopping bags in his hands. He checked the time. He was on schedule. The walk back to his car took less than a minute. That was when the sound cut through the calm. A police cruiser rolled in behind him, slow and deliberate. Tires crunched, an engine idled, a door opened. "Step away from the vehicle," a voice said, sharp and loud. Caleb froze for half a second, then turned slowly. A white police officer stood with his hand resting near his weapon. His name was Officer Nolan Pierce, badge clipped high, eyes already narrowed. The cruiser blocked Caleb's car completely. "I'm just putting my bags inside," Caleb said, keeping his voice flat. Pierce didn't respond to the bags. He didn't respond to the receipt sticking out. He stared at Caleb's face instead. "What are you really doing here?" Pierce asked. Caleb felt the shift, the tone, the assumption. He had felt it before, many times in his life, always the same, always sudden. "I was shopping," Caleb said. "You can see the store logo." Pierce stepped closer. "ID. Now." Caleb didn't move right away. "Am I being detained?" Pierce's jaw tightened. "Don't make this harder." Phones began to rise around them. People slowed their steps. The parking lot no longer felt harmless. Caleb made a choice. He reached slowly, clearly, and handed over his license. Pierce took it and walked back to his cruiser, leaving Caleb standing still, hands visible, heart steady, but heavy. When Pierce returned, his voice had changed. Not calmer. Sharper. "This address is expensive," Pierce said. "What do you do for work?" "That's not related to why you stopped me," Caleb replied. Pierce's eyes flashed. "I'm asking the questions." Caleb nodded once. "I bought a prom dress for my daughter." Pierce looked at the bags. "Open them." "No," Caleb said. "I don't consent to a search." The word consent landed hard. Pierce stepped closer, invading space. "You think you know the law?" "I know my rights," Caleb said. Two more officers arrived and stopped short when they saw the scene. One of them, Officer Lena Walsh, looked at the bags, then at Caleb, then at Pierce. "What's going on?" she asked. Pierce spoke fast. "Suspicious activity." Walsh frowned. "Suspicious how?" Pierce hesitated. That pause mattered. Walsh turned to Caleb. "Sir, you're free to go." Pierce snapped. "No, he's not." The tension cracked open. More phones. More witnesses. Caleb spoke quietly, clearly. "I want all your badge numbers." Walsh gave hers immediately. The other officer followed. Pierce stayed silent until his partner said his name out loud. Caleb typed it into his phone. "I want you to remember this," Caleb said to Pierce. "Every part of it." He got into his car and drove away slowly, perfectly. In the mirror, he saw the cruiser pull out behind him. This was no longer about a dress. It was about power. Caleb felt the weight settle deep as the mall disappeared behind him. He did not speed. He did not relax. He knew eyes were still on him, measuring, waiting. At home, a daughter waited with hope she didn't know how to name yet. Caleb understood one thing with painful clarity. Tonight would not end quietly, and pretending otherwise would only invite worse tomorrow. The choice ahead would define not just his family, but others he had never met. Caleb reached his street with the same control he used in every serious situation: slow turns, full stops, hands steady on the wheel. Only when he pulled into his driveway did his shoulders drop a fraction. The patrol car rolled past without stopping, but the message was clear. He was being watched. Inside the house, warm light spilled through the windows. Ariana was waiting, sitting upright on the couch, shoes still on, phone untouched. She looked relieved the second she saw him. Caleb forced a smile, lifted the bags, and let her open them. When she saw the dress, her breath caught, then she cried, then she hugged him so tightly it hurt. He told her it was from her mom's notes. He did not tell her about the parking lot. That night belonged to her. After Ariana went to bed, the house went quiet in the way grief makes heavy. Caleb sat at the kitchen table and opened his notebook, the one he used when things mattered. He wrote the time he arrived at the mall, the time he left the store, the patrol car number, the badge number, the exact words spoken. He wrote how Officer Pierce's hand rested near his weapon. He wrote how people filmed. He wrote how the cruiser followed him. He matched times with his receipt and his phone location history. He did not guess. He did not exaggerate. He documented. When he finished, he leaned back and stared at the ceiling, knowing this would not stay private. The next morning, a call came before sunrise. It was from his supervisor, a woman named Director Helen Moore, calm but serious. Caleb explained everything without emotion. There was silence at the end, the kind that meant listening, not doubt. Moore told him support was guaranteed, and that whatever he chose, he would not stand alone. Caleb thanked her, hung up, and looked at the folder Alina had made. He knew what he had to do. Silence would protect the wrong people. By noon, 3 videos from the parking lot were online. Faces were blurred, but voices were clear. The words "open the bags" spread fast. So did the image of a father standing still while a cop pressed closer. By evening, news vans sat outside the mall entrance. Officer Pierce reported for duty and acted like nothing had happened. He filed his report anyway, painting Caleb as evasive and suspicious. He left out the witnesses. He left out the refusal from his fellow officers. He pressed submit. That same night, Officer Walsh filed her own report. Hers was short and clean. It said there was no cause. It said the man was calm. It said Pierce was wrong. A second officer backed her up. Two truths now existed on paper, and only one matched the videos. The department placed Pierce on leave the next day. He was angry when called into the office. He said the public didn't understand police work. He said people lied. He said the man acted smart. None of it landed. By afternoon, Caleb stood behind a podium, Ariana beside him, wearing the emerald dress. Cameras flashed. Caleb spoke slowly. He said his name. He said he was a father. He said what happened. He did not insult Pierce. He did not shout. That restraint carried weight. Pierce watched the broadcast from his living room. He recognized the man immediately. The posture. The calm. The authority. His face drained when he learned who Caleb really was. He called his union rep. He said he was being targeted, but the damage was done. More complaints surfaced. Names, dates, patterns, always the same kind of stop. Always the same skin. Investigators dug deeper. They pulled reports Pierce had written years earlier. They found phrases repeated like copy and paste. Suspicious. Uncooperative. Matched description. No arrests followed those stops. No charges stuck, yet nothing had changed. Until now. When Pierce was questioned, the room was quiet. A recorder sat on the table. He was asked why he stopped Caleb. He said he had a feeling. He was asked to define it. He couldn't. He was asked why he threatened arrest. He said the man challenged him. That answer ended the interview. 2 weeks later, charges were filed. False report. Misconduct. Civil rights violation. Pierce stood in court without his uniform. Caleb sat behind him, not looking at him. The judge read the charges aloud. Pierce swallowed hard. For the first time, power shifted fully out of his hands. On prom night, Ariana smiled again. Caleb took photos. The world kept arguing online, but inside that moment, there was peace. Caleb knew the fight ahead would be long. He also knew it had already started changing things. One stop in a parking lot had cracked a system open. And this time, the crack would not close quietly. The trial did not feel dramatic at first. There were no raised voices, no sudden confessions, no shouting across the courtroom. It felt slow, heavy, and serious, the kind of process that crushes people with truth instead of noise. Caleb sat through every session, hands folded, eyes forward. Officer Nolan Pierce sat at the defense table, jaw tight, eyes restless. He looked smaller without the badge. Not weaker, smaller. The prosecution began by laying out the facts in order, minute by minute. They showed the mall security map. They showed the time stamp on Caleb's receipt. They played the videos, one after another, from different angles. The courtroom went silent when Pierce's voice filled the speakers. Open the bags. The same words over and over. The same tone. Calm, then sharp, then threatening. When the prosecutor paused the video and asked Pierce why he had escalated, Pierce said nothing. His lawyer spoke instead, claiming officer safety. The judge raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Then came the witnesses. A woman who had been parked 2 rows over testified first. She said she recorded because it felt wrong immediately. A couple said they stopped walking because the officer's voice sounded angry, not cautious. A college student admitted she had never spoken in court before, but didn't want her silence to mean approval. Each story matched the others. Each one chipped away at Pierce's report. Then Officer Lena Walsh took the stand. She wore her uniform, but her voice did not shake. She said she arrived after the stop began. She said she saw no reason for it to continue. She said she told Pierce to let Caleb go. The defense asked if she felt loyalty to fellow officers. She answered simply, "My loyalty is to the law." That sentence landed hard. The prosecutor then presented the pattern. Prior stops, prior complaints. Names and dates appeared on a screen. A black man walking home. A black mother driving her kids. A teenager late for school. No arrests, no charges. Always the same officer. Pierce shifted in his seat as each name was read. The courtroom felt tighter with every example. Finally, Caleb was called. He walked to the stand with the same calm he'd shown in the parking lot. He raised his hand, took the oath, and sat down. The prosecutor asked him to describe the evening. Caleb did not rush. He spoke plainly. He talked about Alina, about the folder, about the dress, about how his daughter smiled when she saw it. Then he described the stop. He described the tone before the words. He described the way Pierce stood. He described how the questions were not about safety, but about worth. When asked how it made him feel, Caleb paused. "It reminded me," he said, "that being careful doesn't always protect you." The defense attorney tried a different angle. He suggested Caleb was trained to challenge authority. He implied Caleb's calm was calculated. Caleb looked at him steadily. "I didn't challenge authority," Caleb said. "I asked why." That answer ended that line of questioning. When Pierce took the stand, the difference was clear. His answers were shorter. He contradicted his own report twice. When asked why he didn't mention witnesses, he said he forgot. When asked why his fellow officers disagreed with him, he said they didn't see what he saw. When asked what that was, he paused too long. The prosecutor leaned in. "What did you see, Officer Pierce?" Pierce swallowed. Suspicion. "No," the prosecutor said calmly. "What did you see?" Pierce said nothing. The jury watched closely. 12 people, all different backgrounds, all paying attention. They had seen the videos. They had heard the words. They had heard the silence. Closing arguments were brief. The prosecution said this case was not about hating police. It was about protecting truth. The defense said mistakes happen. The judge reminded the jury that mistakes do not include lying under oath. Deliberations took less than 4 hours. When the jury returned, the courtroom stood. The foreperson read the verdicts. Guilty. Each count spoken clearly. Pierce stared straight ahead, unmoving. Caleb closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. He did not smile. Relief did not feel like joy. It felt like weightlifting slowly. Sentencing came weeks later. The judge spoke directly to Pierce. She said power demands discipline. She said patterns matter. She said fear does not excuse harm. Pierce was sentenced to prison time, probation, and a permanent ban from law enforcement. His badge was officially stripped. The gavel fell. That chapter ended. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around Caleb. He answered a few questions, then stepped away. Ariana stood beside him, taller now, steadier. The emerald dress had long been packed away, but its meaning remained. The department announced reforms days later. New oversight. New rules. Complaints reviewed by civilians. Body cameras required at all times. Data released publicly. Words on paper, but words with teeth this time. Pierce was processed into prison quietly. No cameras. No statements. Just steel doors and routine orders. He would spend long nights thinking about one parking lot, one stop, one choice he could not undo. Caleb returned to work. His life did not become easier, but it became clearer. People reached out. Some thanked him. Some shared their own stories. He listened to all of them. He understood something deeply now. Accountability was not loud. It was steady. It was uncomfortable. And once it started, it did not stop at one man. When the sentence became final, the noise faded faster than people expected. Headlines moved on. Cameras packed up. What remained were quiet changes that reached places cameras never went. Inside the police department, training rooms filled with uncomfortable lessons. Officers watched the videos not to mock or defend, but to pause and analyze. Supervisors reviewed old complaints with fresh eyes. Files that once gathered dust were reopened. Some officers resigned before questions reached them. Others stayed and learned. The message was simple and firm. What happened in that parking lot would not be treated as an accident. It would be treated as a warning. Caleb did not celebrate. He returned to routine, because routine keeps grief from swallowing you whole. Mornings were coffee, emails, briefings. Evenings were dinner, homework checks, quiet talks on the couch. Ariana changed in small ways. She walked taller. She spoke with more certainty. When friends asked about prom, she smiled and told them it was special. She did not mention cameras or courts. She talked about music and pictures and feeling close to her mom. That was enough. Months later, Caleb was invited to speak to a room full of officers. He stood at the front without notes. He told them he respected the job. He told them fear was real. Then he said something that made the room go still. He said respect starts before suspicion. He said asking why is not an attack. He said authority does not come from volume. He did not mention Pierce by name. He did not need to. Everyone knew. Outside the department, the changes spread. The county created an independent board to review complaints. Citizens sat at the table, not as guests, but as decision makers. Reports became public. Patterns were tracked. Data showed fewer stops that led nowhere. Arrest numbers stayed steady. Trust, slowly, began to grow in places where it had been thin for years. Pierce served his time without ceremony. Prison reduced days to counts and rules. Letters arrived at first, then stopped. His world shrank to what fit inside concrete walls. He replayed the stop again and again, sometimes blaming others, sometimes blaming himself. Accountability does that. It removes distractions. When he was released, there were no second chances waiting with open arms. Work was hard to find. Reputation followed him everywhere. Consequences did not shout, they stayed. Caleb watched none of it closely. He did not need to. His focus stayed forward. He helped start a small foundation in Alina's name, offering legal help and counseling to families who felt powerless after similar stops. He never promised outcomes. He promised effort. He promised listening. That mattered more than speeches. One evening, Ariana asked him if he was glad he spoke up. The question was simple but heavy. Caleb thought for a moment. He said he wished the stop never happened. He said he wished Alina had been there to see the dress. Then he said yes. He said speaking up kept the next family from standing alone. Ariana nodded. She understood that kind of math. Years passed. The story became a case study in training manuals. New officers learned it as a lesson about judgment and restraint. Some rolled their eyes. Others leaned in. Change is never even, but it was moving. On the anniversary of the stop, Caleb returned to the mall once alone. He stood in the same section of the parking lot. The lights looked the same. The space felt smaller. He took a breath and walked away without looking back. That place no longer owned the memory. At home, a framed photo sat on the shelf. Caleb and Ariana on prom night, both smiling, the emerald dress catching the light. Under it was a small card with Alina's handwriting copied carefully. It read, "Do the right thing, even when it is hard, especially then." That sentence had carried them through loss, fear, and scrutiny. It carried them now into something steadier. Not perfect, not healed, but honest. The truth was simple. A father went shopping. A cop made a choice. The world watched. Accountability followed. And because one moment was not buried, many others did not have to be repeated. That is how change happens. Not all at once. Not loudly. But firmly, one clear line at a time. In the years that followed, reports showed measurable shifts. Complaints were reviewed faster. Body cameras stayed on. Supervisors were held to timelines they could not ignore. Community meetings grew crowded again, not with anger alone, but with questions and expectations. Trust did not return all at once, but it no longer felt impossible. Parents spoke up sooner. Young people learned their rights earlier. Small changes layered into something solid. Caleb remained careful not to become a symbol instead of a person. He declined some invitations and accepted others. When he spoke, he focused on practical things. How to stay calm. How to document facts. How to demand respect without escalating risk. He never promised safety. He promised clarity. That honesty built credibility. Ariana left for college with the confidence of someone who had seen systems bend when pressed correctly. She studied law because she wanted tools, not applause. On move-in day, Caleb hugged her longer than usual. He told her to remember where she came from and why it mattered. She smiled and said she already did. Back home, the house felt quieter, but not empty. Life continued. That is the part stories often skip. The work of living after the cameras leave. Caleb kept going because that is what parents do. Because memory should not freeze a family in place. If there is a lesson here, it is not that justice always wins. It is that silence always loses. Speaking up costs something. Staying quiet costs more. One parking lot proved that. And once proven, it could not be unseen. That truth remains steady and unavoidable for anyone willing to look, listen, and choose better tomorrow together.